Good morning, mister. After the defeat in the Coppa Italia, how did you find the team recovering and, well, what's the team's mood like?
No, we managed to get the mood back up to par. Well, after losing 4-0, I don't like celebrating the previous match, but we have to remember that, well, even though it was a match that we prepared to play in the best possible way, we know what our main objective is, the players know it, we know it, everyone knows it, and we can't afford to get discouraged. Well, we analyzed the game from a technical and tactical point of view. We analyzed it when we were 11 against 11 because I think that's the right thing to do, and because we made some mistakes even when we were numerically even and we made others, in my opinion, well, and so both individual performances and those of the team are easier to evaluate when we're 11 against 11. We did a serious analysis of that period of the game, which was only half an hour, but the morale of the next day was already high. We worked on that too, on trying to bring it back up immediately because we need it, because Monday is an important game. Here's the picture, let's say, of who wasn't available among those with flu and so on. But we don't have a clear idea because you're used to holding the press conference 2 days before the game. I usually do it the day before the game, and usually there you know more or less who's doing well and who's doing badly. It's a flu that we're obviously getting a bit of, so that's what's bothering us the most at the moment. We've lost a few players for a few days, but Jeff Egater himself was at the pitch today. He did a bit of running to sweat a bit, but he's been feeling bad the previous few days. Stefano Sabelli, Idem, Malinovsky, and I'm forgetting someone else. Caleb Ekuban was also he was quite bruised from this point of view, but today we trained with a lot of players, and as always I think we'll all be ready for Monday. Here we go. Here we go, mister. A month is coming with a really tough calendar in terms of matches, right? But even in Cagliari we saw a Genoa that even away from home went to play, to compete, to try to win. Is that a bit of what you expect in Udine against a team that has started the championship well anyway? I think that if we were to repeat the match in Cagliari, we would also leave Udine, the stadium in Udine, happy. Notwithstanding the fact that in Cagliari, as we saw, we drew in the last minute in a resounding manner, but we could have also won it, perhaps we deserved it. However, Udinese are a top-level team, very physical, a club that I respect a lot for the way they have worked for, I don't know, 30 to 35 years, without ever being relegated, without almost ever risking relegation, so it will be a very difficult match, and, as far as the calendar is concerned, well, we are only thinking about this one, and I have never won 4 games together. One at a time, I think we have the chance to make several points starting from this one, which is perhaps the most or least within our reach of the next 4, but after all, games must be played against everyone. Right? In fact, I said it precisely with the aim of saying that one cannot think too much, but to try to take points in every game. Yes, absolutely. Then, 1, regardless of what the calendar will be, the next calendar in the future, when you start the championship so slowly, if we want to say, in terms of points, every game, every reserve game, every game is important, and every game you can go and snatch that victory, those points that will then be useful in the end to make the sum and get yourself out of the low zones, the dangerous zones. So we absolutely do not do the math, and we are analyzing this. Well, for months, it has been said about this team that one of the biggest limitations was in attack, the difficulty in scoring goals. Then let's look at the last month. Sensationally, Genoa is the team that has scored the most in Serie A in the last 4 games together with Bologna. So this makes one understand that probably everything is a bit relative in football. Now that you've unlocked this aspect a bit, you have room for improvement, perhaps in creating even more chances. But what improvement do you expect in the next game and in the upcoming games? What can Gino improve the most? Absolutely in defending our area, our goal. We need to be more dominant there and, I repeat, I'm not just talking about defenders, I'm talking about everything. Let's say the defensive setup when you drop back, when you spot, crosses into the area and, in short, be organized, know where to position yourself and be physically present. I mean, you can't be shy in the air, you can't be good guys, and in the area we really need to be much more dominant in terms of positioning and also duels, because if we had been dominant in these games we would have brought home a lot of points. Good morning, mister. I'm asking you, reviewing the Bergamo match, were there any positive aspects or indications that could perhaps also offer some ideas for the next few days, and if so, what do you think they could be? First of all, we went to take on a very strong team man by man, and I saw that the team is not afraid to do it, and that formation also had a good amount of muscle to be able to do it. And then when you go to take on these teams man by man, you find yourself with a play like the one that led to the expulsion, and that expulsion is a play that you can make 100 times, but every now and then you also have to say well done to the opponent. A ball thrown in, defended first time, put into such a small space and attack the space like Bellanova did. There, the only thing we could do was maybe not to commit a foul and stay a bit more calm, hoping that he would miss the goal, but I noticed that this team is also prepared to go. So from game to game we will decide whether to always go strong like we did there in Bergamo, or whether to maybe go with one less player and try to give a bit more protection to the defense. But this is a cue, an answer that I wanted. In short, they did it without batting an eyelid, with courage and also with the right pace, in my opinion. And I think that 11 against 11 we would have continued to do so. And then the individual performances, the individual cues, because in half an hour you can see little, but you can see how some players approach the game. If you throw in a 2006 player like Feeney, who is shy and hides and, as soon as he gets the ball, it burns him and he passes it back, it's not the end of the world, precisely because he's a 2006 player. But if he does what he did to me, he already gives me an answer, that is, the player is there, he wants to determine something, he has the qualities, so he's a player that maybe in certain circumstances of the game I can use him on the left, he can use him on the right, I can use him under the striker. I'll give Side as an example, because he's the one who maybe came out of the game a bit more battered due to the sending off, because he's a fantastic guy and because he's someone who in those 30 minutes that he played tried to win the game, he tried to show me that he was capable of doing what he does in training, and he tried to do something, to play the game. I can accept players who make mistakes, I don't accept players who don't play, who don't try, who don't make a difference, who don't want to be protagonists. And instead, I also talked earlier about improvements in the defensive phase. Genoa has suffered a lot on corners and set pieces at the start of this season. On Monday you'll play against one of the most physical teams in the league. How are you working and trying to improve in this area? And let's say we're working on presence, because you can be in the air, you can be man-to-man, you can be zonal, but you can be dull and transparent, or you can be active, lively and present both in the duel, and in hindering the opponent's run, and in being present in a zone of the area. And we're repeating these situations, so we work a lot on defensive set pieces, and then, we can't improve our players that much. I mean, we can use very high rackets, like wedges, but that's what we are. Udinese is a team that for 30 years has been building its players with these athletic, physical and structural characteristics. I made a joke, I said, guys, we'll play against 11 Norton Cafe because he's that player, they have that search there. It goes without saying that they also bring out short players, very good ones, but they have that search for players that is a bit similar to what Atalanta do, and we have to be ready for a game that could be very physical both on set pieces and during the game. Here we are, mister, good morning. Quote, and he said 11 Norton Cafe, but you have Norton Cafe and he's back. He tried him, he explained him the other day as a defensive arm. However, he is showing that he really is the fifth midfielder that Genoa needs. How did you find him after Wednesday's game and what do you expect from him on Monday? He found him very good. He's a player that I like a lot and he must continue like this because he is someone who knows, he wants to improve, he is someone who asks questions, he is curious and he knows that with his technical qualities and even with the physical characteristics he has, he can really break the world. That's what we see in him all the time. However, he needs to put in knowledge of his body, knowledge of his technical ability and learn to play a lot with his teammates. Well, if he has to take inspiration from someone, it's that player we saw on Wednesday, Bellanova, a player similar to him, with those physical characteristics. I don't think he's technically stronger than him, but he's someone who's learned to exploit spaces, he's learned to play 1-2 many times, he's someone who believes in going deep, even when you're not sure that the ball will arrive. And we need to work on this, on our players because we want to improve them and because there's incredible, unexplored and incredible potential in Brook, in my opinion. And I put him in a position that's not his because I wanted to see him, because Stefano had Sabelli fever and I wanted to see something that could be useful for the match, but also useful in the future for all the choices and decisions that we have to make. But we know that he's a fifth. If I had another game to try it out, I would have also tried it on the left because I'm curious to see how it works, playing on the other wing, maybe coming back on the right and using that kind of physical strength to go inside on my strong foot. But there's no other game, so tomorrow he'll play on the right, on Monday he'll play on the right. On the other hand, in the last few games the Vitna-Colombo pairing has been looking for each other, finding each other more and they're finding more confidence. We know that the striker needs to score, but goals and assists are also more free. How are you finding them during the week? No, they're doing well. It's obvious that strikers are a special breed among strikers and I didn't get along with them well when I was playing. Now, however, I pamper them because they're a bit of a world apart and they thrive on this type of symbiosis, this type of connection and also these mood swings based on how many goals they score, how many assists they make. They're having fun on the pitch. I have great confidence in them. But I want more, I always want more. Well, those who are able to play like they did in Cagliari must always be able to do so regardless of the strength of the opponent and, for example, they must be two strikers. I mean, Vito, I like the way he's playing around the pitch, but I want him to be even more present in the area because he's a striker because in my opinion he has a few more goals than those he's shown us in his repertoire. But honestly, I have to be honest, I'm also very happy with Calebon, with how he came on in Bergamo and with how Jeff played. Jeff played a sacrificial game against one of the strongest defenders in the league. He took hits left and right, he played alone when outnumbered and he didn't act like a child, he acted like a great player. So, I really appreciated him. I appreciated him in the sense that I appreciated the performance. I didn't appreciate that he played seriously, because that's his job and Caleb, who came on, also gave 2-3 bursts. He showed that we have a very strong attacking department, speaking of pure forwards. Then there are the various messiahs who has returned to training and is doing great. Valentin Carboni who is another incredible talent and many others I may have forgotten. You are the same as playing up front. It is an interesting department that is starting to move in my opinion with more confidence, with more trust.
Instead, one last thing that has nothing to do with Genoa and have you seen the World Cup draw and what was Canada like? Canada, what was it like? Canada, Qatar and Switzerland.
Qatar and Switzerland, but first we have to go through the playoffs. What is your opinion? My opinion is that I would not comment on the group because I think that, despite the fact that we are a strong team, a team in my opinion much stronger than the one we have depicted in recent months, with a strong coach, who naturally has, as we all know, the potential to get through that group and to get to that group, because we have 2 games before that will be difficult, especially the second one that we will go to playing away from home, so it's not a gift because no one gives it away, because we know that we've also come up against teams that aren't super famous in recent years, but Italy, if I had to make a union, if it weren't Italy and I wasn't being strict, I would imagine them with great potential to win both the, let's say, the playoff in that group. Then, after Switzerland, they're a team that has already beaten us once, so we have to take them all with caution. Qatar is growing a lot. Canada is a team that has players like Kane, like David, like Davis. I don't know if he still plays for the national team, I hadn't seen him lately, but they're an interesting team, so you go there with caution, but first let's think about going there. Mister, apart from the players who have flu, I don't know about Grombeck, Cornea, they've had muscular problems, I'm asking you how they're if there's anyone else with any ailments that Max has trained with. Max, has he trained with us today? And he trained, you know, doing a bit and a bit outside, a bit inside, a bit outside, a bit inside, a bit because there are so many of us, a bit because we didn't want to make him train 100% right away. Let's see how he is tomorrow, but I think it could be too early for Udine. While Albert is continuing his journey and some ailments from the last game, some ailments from the last day. He went into the physio and everyone was getting patched up, but anyway we should be there, then we should be there for the rest. The last thing I wanted to ask, we said 11 Norton Cafe. The least Norton Cafe perhaps from Udinese is the one you also played with, Zaniolo. He's also physically, but you don't know him well then because, not in the sense that he's a beast physically, but he also has a lot of technique, you know, also quality, and he's perhaps in his best moment since leaving Roma in terms of continuity. Well, since you know him, how should he be held back, and if he can be an asset for Italy too, if he continues like this? Italy has so many resources that Rhino is evaluating and analyzing, so I don't dare give advice. I think he made the right choice, going to a sort of happy island, a place where you work among serious, organized, and fairly methodical people, so there's no room for anything other than football, and I'm pleased to see him at his level, even if these are perhaps not his levels, but there's even more behind him. Well, physically you described him badly because physically he's an animal, a Norton Cafe beast. I knew him when I was a kid. What happened later? I lost sight of him a bit. We talk every now and then, but rarely, but I got to know a player with incredible potential and a very good guy. He always behaved well there with us in first team, he arrived with humility, he made himself available, he ran. Every now and then we had to beat him in training because he was too strong. He never said a word. I have wonderful memories of Nicolo. Careers have 1,000 paths, 1,000 segments. Sometimes you slip, we're young. Sometimes you lose your step a little bit, and maybe it happened to him because, in my opinion, he promised a career at completely, different levels. He was also unlucky with his knees. But a player who is still young, 99 if I'm not mistaken, so he started running again. He was good on Monday, but I hope for him that he does what we all predicted when we saw him explode there in Rome, because he is a good guy and a very strong player. Bye.